Okay, guys, remember that when we are factoring trinomials, we need to think of two numbers that multiply and give you the last one and add to give you the middle one, which is b. All right, especially if there is no number in the front. This is a 1, right? So there's nothing that I can take out of here. So when I factor it, I'm going to put these two numbers in decimals. Positive 45 goes first, and positive 14 goes second, and we're going to put it in just like this. Two numbers that multiply and give you the last one, two numbers that add and give you the middle one. Okay? Then we're going to go look where the two colors meet. So that'll be there, and the numbers don't change. It's a positive 9 and a positive 5. That means 9 times 5 gives you 45, and when you add them, 9 plus 5 gives you 14. So we're going to put them over here. My numbers are x plus 9 and x plus 5. Okay, and the factoring is done. So we're going to do the same thing with the second one. I need two numbers that multiply and give me negative 28 and add to give me negative 3. So I'm just going to change my numbers, don't change the equations, to a negative 28 and a negative 3. So this becomes a negative 28, and this number becomes a negative 3. Okay, so again, where the colors meet, right there and right there, my 7 is negative and my 4 is positive. That means when I add these two, that gives me a negative 3. And when I multiply these two, it gives me a negative 28. So I'm going to write down negative 7 and positive 4. And my letters are n's. So n times n gives me n squared. Okay? The next two, we did these yesterday. There is a greatest common factor amongst these. Okay, and the way that you can find it is by typing in the calculator GCF. So greatest common factor, parentheses, and I'm looking for 2, 2, 24. So if there is a greatest common factor, it's going to tell you a number. If there isn't a greatest common factor, it's going to give you a 1. And those are, hold on. So if it has a greatest common factor, we're going to take that out. So everybody do this with me. We're going to take out a 2 and divide everything by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1a squared. 2 divided by 2 is 1a. And negative 24 divided by 2 is a negative 12. Okay, so now it gives me a new equation, and I'm going to factor this. I need numbers, two numbers that multiply and give me negative 12. And add to give me a positive 1. So I'm going to go change my numbers in decimals to a negative 12 and a positive 1. Right here, this becomes negative 12, and this becomes a positive 1. Okay, so my numbers are a negative 3 and a positive 4. Negative 3 and a positive 4. So when I factor it, negative 3, positive 4, I still have a times a because that gives me a squared, and I still have my 2 in the front because I need to multiply everything by 2 so that it gives me that 2 in the front. Okay, you have to keep everything together. So we're going to do the same thing for problem 4. I'm going to type 4, 24, and 20 and see if there's a greatest common factor. 4, 24, and 20. And if you're not doing this with me, you're not learning. 4, 24, what's the other one? 20. Okay, so my greatest common factor is 4. That means I can divide everything out by 4. So I'm going to divide everything by 4, take out a 4, and start dividing. 4 divided by 4 is 1p squared. Negative 24 divided by 4 is a negative 6p. And 20 divided by 4 is a positive 5. Okay? So now the numbers that I'm going to type in Desmos are 5 and negative 6. Two numbers that multiply and give me a 5 and add to give me a negative 6. So I'm going to change them. 5 and negative 6. Okay, so only where the colors meet, it's a negative 5 and a negative 1. So I'm going to write them down. Negative 5 and a negative 1. And they have p, so this is p times p. Gives me p squared. And don't forget the 4 in the front. Okay, why is it so important to find the greatest common factor? Because when we cannot find a greatest common factor, then we're going to have to factor it a different way. Okay? We're going to have to factor it out a different way. So here are the steps that we're going to use. And it's okay if you don't understand it right now. I'm going to do 4 examples with you, so you're going to follow along. We're going to draw a box in the first and last term. That means this one and this one. Okay? And you're going to multiply the coefficients. This and this, we're going to multiply. Okay? Then we're going to find the two factors, just like we did a little while ago. And then we're going to do something else. So before we do that, let's make sure that this does not have a greatest common factor. I want you to type 2, 5, and 3 and see if there's a greatest common factor. 2, 5, 3. Right here, greatest common factor. 2, 5, 3. There is nothing I can take out because my greatest common factor is a 1. Okay? So if I can't take anything out, that means my 2 is going to stay there, and I don't like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the first one and the last one. So what's 2 times 3? 6. So instead of this 3, now I have a 6. So do this with me. I'm going to take that 2 out. The 2's gone because I multiplied it by 3. That's x squared plus 5x plus 6. That 3 turned into a 6 because I had to multiply the 2 and the 3. Okay? So now I'm going to factor like normal, right? I need two numbers that multiply and give me 6 and add to give me 5. So in Desmos, I have 6 and positive 5. And you should already know these. It's 2 and 3. A positive 2 and a positive 3 multiply to give you 6 and add to give you 5. So then, I'm going to write it out. It's x plus 2 and x plus 3. Now, Ms. Mesa, you cannot tell me that that's it, right? Because I know that x times x gives me x squared. So what about that 2, right? So now, at the very end, because there was a 2 in the front, I'm going to divide these by 2. That number, whatever that number was, you're going to divide these 2 by it, right? What happens with this? 2 divided by 2 cancels and it's a 1. So x plus 1. And then this one, because I can't divide those two, 3 divided by 2, it's 3 divided by 2. So I'm going to put this 2 right here in the front. So it becomes 2x plus 3, and then it works. And if you don't believe me, we can do the box. But just know that x times 2x is 2x squared. That's how you get that 2 in the front. Okay? So I want you to pause the video. I want you to try example 2 just how we did example 1. Just try it. Okay, so hopefully you paused the video and you at least had a little bit of time to try it. The first thing we did was check if there's a greatest common factor, 5, 17, 6. 5, 17, 6. does not have a greatest common factor. That means I cannot take anything out, so the 5 has to stay in the front. So if the 5 has to stay in the front, then I'm going to multiply these two. Multiply. That gives me 30. So the 5 goes away. Now I have m squared minus 17m plus 30. Okay, and we're going to factor like normal. I need two numbers that multiply and give me 30 and add to give me a negative 17. 30 goes here. Negative 17 goes here. My two numbers are negative 15 and negative 2. It makes sense. When you add these two, that's a negative 17. When you multiply those two, that's a positive 30. So we're going to put them here. Negative 15 and negative 2. And I have m's, so that's m and m. Now, I don't want you to forget that there was a 5 in the front. Please do not forget about the 5, because if not, you're going to get it wrong. M times m does not give me 5m squared. So I have to make sure that I remember the 5. Divide both by 5. Okay? What's 15 divided by 5? 3. So that's a negative 3. That's m minus 3 is one of my factors. And this one I cannot divide, so I'm going to move this over to the front. So it becomes 5m minus 2. 5m times m is 5m squared. Okay? Let's do the same thing with example 3. Type 6, 5, and 4. Greatest common factor in the calculator. 6, 5, and 4. Is there a greatest common factor? No. I cannot divide any of those by any number. Okay? So I'm going to multiply the 6 and the 4. What does that give you? 24, so that's a negative 24. So I'm going to write y squared minus 5y minus 24. Type these in decimals. The negative 24 goes first. The negative 5 goes second. Negative 24 goes first. And the negative 5 goes second. Okay, two numbers that multiply and give me a negative 24, that would be negative 8 and 3. Two numbers that add and give me a negative 5, those are it. Okay, the bigger number has the negative 5. So I'm going to write down negative 8 and 3. Negative 8 and positive 3. Don't forget your y's. And don't forget your 6. There was a 6 in the front. So what do I do with the 6 again? Divide both by 6. Okay? You're going to have to use the TI calculator for this one because you need to reduce those fractions. So we're going to do negative 8 divided by 6. Math, enter, enter. Write that down. And 3 divided by 6. Math, enter, enter. 1/2. So I have negative 4/3 and 1/2. Negative 4/3, sorry. I have y minus 4/3, and I have y plus 1/2. So what do I do with those numbers at the bottom? This 3 goes to the front. This 2 goes to the front. So I have 3y minus 4, and I have 2y plus 1. We will never end up with fractions. If you end up with a fraction, move the denominator to the front. Move the denominator to the front. Okay? Because 3y times 2y equals 6y squared. Okay? Go ahead and do example 4 and then finish the back.